All right, thank you all for coming again. And welcome to this Intact Community Discussion Group, where we will be discussing Intact Radio. And yeah, I'll just start off with basically the purpose of this meeting. And the reason I want to share this purpose is so that all of you can take absolute responsibility for this purpose and help make this happen in any way you can. And I will also mention for our audience watching this after the fact that I would also like you to take responsibility for this. And yeah, comment or reach out to me. And any of the questions and exercises we do here can also apply to you. And please contribute in any way you can. So the purpose of this meeting is to design and launch an Intactivist media team aligned with the Intact Community mission. So this mission of Intact Community is to prevent and heal genital mutilation by giving Intactivists a constructive, fun, loving, easy way to participate in the movement. This media team will create audio and video media content on a daily basis, and we aim to achieve 1 million views per week across a combination of all of the content that we create within 6 months of launch, and then continue growing from there. So an ambitious goal, as you can see, but I think it's doable, or at least worth shooting for. And are there any questions from you guys on the purpose of the meeting? All right, cool. So, and then I'll just review the rules one more time. So I want to have love, not hate, which basically just means, come from a place of love. Stay focused on intactivism. Be kind and respectful. Listen intensely for the genius of other members and not just, talking. Talking is also great. Be your best, take 100% responsibility, as I mentioned. Leave your ego at the door, meaning basically debate ideas, not personalities. Mute your mic when you're not speaking, especially if there's any background noise. And keep your video on during the meeting so that we can see your beautiful faces. And also, I will just add, if you have to go to the bathroom, of course, at any time you can do that. If you have a tiny bladder like I do. And yeah, actually, let me do one more thing here. I want to change the view because I believe that also changes the view for the podcast recording so you can see everyone to a gallery view. I like that way of doing it a little better. So, and finally, I'll just do a quick overview of the meeting components. We will start with a meditation to focus our energy and attention. We will then do brief introductions. I would present the media team outline, request feedback from each group member, and I would like everyone to contribute, if possible, 1 to 3 greatest strengths of the project that you see, and 1 to 3 ways that the project could be made stronger. We'll then have an open sort of discussion, a more organic discussion about the project, how it could be improved, what we might change, and any potential additions to the project or add-ons or just even separate projects that might be sparked by this. We will then commit to any next actions that might, sort of push this forward, and then have final reflections. Are there any questions on those meeting components? All right, cool. So then I'd like to start this meeting with a quick, just 5-minute meditation, basically to sort of focus and get in the zone to do this meeting. So you can start by just relaxing your body. You can close your eyes if you like. Just become aware of your breath. Allowing your mind to focus, and your body to relax. You might be aware of your senses, any sounds, smells or colors in your vision. Notice any thoughts or emotions as they drift through your experience. Just being aware of yourself and your experience. And the space in which everything is occurring. And as you're in this state of enhanced awareness, you can now bring your attention to the question, why is intactivism important to you? And just let any answers come that may come, and then go even a little bit deeper and just again ask, why is intactivism important to you? And allow yourself to really feel that answer that's coming through you, whatever answers are coming through. And allow that to fill your body and actually feel that energy and how it motivates you, how it pushes you to achieve the purpose of this meeting. And for those of you just joining, Carter, we're in a meditation right now. So again, just asking yourself why intactivism is important to you and feeling the energy of that and how that is motivating you and pushing you forward into this meeting. And then I would like you to set an intention for this meeting. So bringing your best self to the meeting and being the absolute best version of who you can be, so that you can bring as strong of your skills, your motivation, your experiences, bringing all of that to mind, and just set an intention right now to be your absolute best self so that you can achieve the purpose of creating this media team to help end non-consensual genital cutting for all children. Next, bring your awareness in your mind to all of the members of this group and to the collective intelligence, and just notice that you're here with these other men and that you are part of something larger than yourself. You're part of a whole movement, actually. And just be aware of that collective intelligence, of all of the motivation and all of the skills and all of the experiences that everyone in this group and in the movement is bringing. Be aware of the fact that together we can do so much more together than we can do apart. And again, just intend to tap that collective intelligence to bring out the best in each other as well. So finally, one more thing to focus on is staying focused on constructive activism, thinking long term, thinking 10x thinking. How can we be 10 times better rather than just 10% better? How can we achieve our massively transformative purpose to truly move this movement forward in a massive way? Tapping all of these energies and all of these things that you've now considered, thinking long term and on a massive scale. And then you can let all of these things that we've just discussed melt back into the space around you, back into the collective of the group. Let it fade into the background as you again become aware of your breath, your senses. You can open your eyes when you're ready. And again, just be aware of the room, the present moment around you. And yeah, fully ready to move forward. So I'd like to start this meeting now with a brief introduction from everyone. You can introduce yourself, maybe just what you're bringing to intactivism. You know, anything you want to say about that, what your background or something like that is. For those of you who don't know each other, at least, I think that would be helpful. And then you may also want to mention something like your intention or your hope for the meeting. So yeah, just give everyone a minute to introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Carter. I don't think I've met two of you before, John and David. I'm not sure. Have we met in the past or? Cool.
You
Well,
came
hey,
on
glad
that
to
show, Carter, with I was doing Jordan Norell's
Right,
show.
right.
Yeah.
I remember that now. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good to see you again, bro.
You too, man.
John, haven't met you before. How do you why did you get involved in this group, or how did you get involved in this group? How do you know Jordan?
Sure thing. Well, first off, nice to meet you too. And I met Brendan Murata. I think you just did his show a few weeks ago, right? And
Right, yeah. Yep.
he's been a good friend and client of mine for a while. We haven't done much work in the realm of intactivism together. He had a kind of a course and a product that he launched last year that I helped him with, but I always felt that the work I've done with different clients was meaningful. But when I was doing work with Brendan, it was like, well, anything I can do for this guy is freeing up his time and maybe giving him money and attention to help this important cause.
Right,
So
yeah, fair
I
enough.
always asked him to do more, and then eventually he wanted me to be at his wedding, and that's where I met Jordan in Austin, Texas, in November at Brendan's.
Nice. Cool. Well, hey, glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Well, like John was saying, I recently released a video with my mom. I think that gives some good context of what it is that I'm looking to do, or what I'm looking to bring to the table here. I'm looking to just keep creating content like that, possibly with my mom in the future. She's really interested in putting out content on her own too. I recently got her in contact with a mom of this man who committed suicide after he got circumcised as an adult from the UK. So I want to see if they can put a piece of content together on their own, kind of without my involvement, and publish that on YouTube as well. And then I'm going to distribute that around. And that's all part of a strategy that I have to start creating content for a specific purpose of engaging with the Phoenix City Council, the city that I live in. And I'd like to, the goal is to have them implement policy that will, help abandon this practice, like an enhanced circumcision consent form that, is mandated at hospitals and clinics and things like that.
Great, thanks, Carter. Is John still here? John Atkinson. His video dropped out, but all right. Who would like to introduce themselves
I'm here.
next? Oh, there you are. Okay, cool.
Hi, everyone.
Sure.
Hopefully, I think everyone here knows me. Maybe one doesn't know me, but I've been an avid, active intactivist for a few years now. I'm a cut dad with 2 intact teen sons, so I've been studying this issue for well over 15 years. I'm all over social media and Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I think I got it all.
Great, thanks, John.
Sure, I can go next if you want. Yeah, I kind of, just quick introduction. I got into this movement probably 2 years ago. when my best friend, he started calling me, wanting me to watch Eric Klopper's Harvard show. So that's kind of how I got into this. And about a year after he introduced me to that, and we were talking every day, he actually committed suicide over this issue. So that's kind of, I have my own personal reasons for being here, but that's also a big motivator for me. And he's really pushed me to get more involved in this. So it's kind of his credit that I'm doing this right now, you know? And then in terms of like what I see for this, from what I've seen, like with social media and stuff, I think consistency is really important, being on a somewhat of a schedule where we can be organized, and also not get burnt out, you know, because it's so easy to get burnt out. But I think like, you know, a couple shows a week consistently is really important, with maybe guest hosts or people who are committed to doing it on that time frame, just so the viewers can be we can feel reliable to people, you know, when they're ready to come on, or they need support, or they're looking to get into this issue, or introducing new people, that we're constantly there and ready to take in new people, I think is important. That's pretty much all I have really on my mind. Just getting on a schedule, and John seems to be like, he's pretty much on fire doing his own thing, and Carter's on fire. So for me personally, maybe just like once or twice a week, I could guest host or facilitate meetings or something like that would be kind of my role.
Great, thank you, David. Appreciate that.
My name's John, and I want to thank you all for being here. And Carter, thank you for the welcome. Jordan, thanks for hosting this. As I said a few minutes ago, I haven't been too involved with the movement. Actually, this would probably be my first meeting with sort of multiple people, or structured meeting on the topic. So I'm definitely, my big intention is to listen and learn, and kind of see if I can catch up to some of the work y'all have been doing. I guess quickly about me, uh, artist and entrepreneur, so comedian, musician, and I run a marketing company. So I hope that, you know, expertise and experience in, you know, communicating to people either directly through content, or, you know, my experience running bigger strategies and operations, will, you know, hopefully that can provide some kind of value to the movement, to the group. But you know, really right now I am just really interested to learn. David, I understand that you know the rest of these guys here, and this is my first time meeting you, so I just want to offer my condolences about your friend there. That really sucks. But yeah, I guess that's all I have for right now. I'm excited to be here, and Jordan, thank you for hosting.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you all for coming. As you can see, we have a rock star team here. It's a little different than the first meeting. There's actually no one from the first meeting. Brendan would have been the only person from the first meeting, but I wanted to reach out to each of you specifically because I think there's something very specific you could add to a media team, or you're already involved in media or whatever. And so, and actually both John Atkinson and Carter were actually mentioned in the previous meeting as people I should invite. So unfortunately couldn't invite everyone because I want to keep these meetings around six people. But thank you all for coming so much. So the next thing I want to go over is basically this presentation that I already sent you all. I just want to refresh your memory in case you didn't read it, or in case you need a reminder. And so I will ask for your feedback after I read this, 1 to 3 things that you think are kind of the greatest strengths, and then 1 to 3 things that are the ways that this could best be improved or strengthened. And again, looking for like really radical ways that it could be made as strong as humanly possible, like 10 times thinking. And And yeah, so as you listen to this, if you want, you can close your eyes if you want, or just listen and basically envision what I'm saying and kind of see those best qualities and then see ways that it could be improved. And if you need to, you can take notes. I think you could just type it into the Zoom chat if you want, or you could type it somewhere else if there's things you want to remember. Just invite you to do that. And yeah, so I'll also just mention quickly again, the purpose of this is to design and launch this Intactivist Media team aligned with the Intact Community mission. The mission of Intact Community, this group, is to prevent and heal genital mutilation. That means heal both physically and emotionally. And to do this by giving Intactivists a constructive, fun, loving, easy way to participate in the movement. This media team will create audio and video media content on a daily basis, and we aim to achieve 1 million views per week with the combined views of all content within 6 months of launch, and then continue growing from there. So, without further ado, what is Intact Radio? Intact Radio is a new intactivist media company that aims to push intactivism sustainably into the mainstream. Strategic objectives include improving intactivist public image and molding a positive narrative, enabling people to see the good intactivists are doing, providing a beacon of positive intactivist culture, unifying the intactivist movement by bringing together the projects, needs, and challenges of all the existing organizations together all on one platform, educating intactivists to amplify their effectiveness, establishing a community of content creators who can support, encourage, and help each other to create great content. Intact Community will achieve this with a combination of in-house volunteer hosts, affiliated Intactivist podcasts reposted on our channel, and regular guest podcast appearances by each of the major Intactivist organizations and leading Intactivists. We will use the Restream to live stream our content, and that can stream on up to 30 channels for each broadcast. This will include YouTube and Facebook channels of existing Intactivist organizations who will allow us to stream on their channels, as well as whichever influencers we can contact who have the largest audience and will allow us to use their channels. Content will be focused on preventing and healing non-consensual genital cutting. In order to combat burnout, which is debilitating to the movement, we will bias our content and the attitude we bring toward constructive, fun, loving, effective intactivism. This does not mean we won't be honest about the harm of circumcision. It just means we will always put a hopeful, constructive, solution-focused spin on it insofar as is possible. Topics may include educational content around circumcision and the intact body, movement and community building, foreskin or clitoris restoration and regeneration, movement strategy and tactics, intactivist news.
Can I pause you for just a second, Jordan?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd replace clitoris with vulva.
Sure. Good point. I'll make a note of that actually. So other topics are movement and strategy tactics, intactivist news, live call-in discussions among intactivists, compassionate discussions with people who are unaware of the harms of circumcision, psychological healing related to circumcision, and any other intactivist topic hosts or organizations hosts or organizations may choose. And one thing I'll also mention that I should have added to this presentation somewhere is that this is not just for sort of male circumcision intactivism. It also could include female genital cutting as well as intersex genital cutting. So at the beginning of each week, in-house hosts will meet for 30 minutes and discuss progress, questions, and ideas for new media, marketing, or process improvements. Affiliated members and organizations are also invited to join. There will also be a Discord open for discussions and questions. New hosts can be added indefinitely as long as there are time slots available for new media. We will aim to add one new host every other week. Hosts can create content as often as they want, but we will aim for an average of one piece of content per week for each host. All content will be promoted and or reposted to the relevant Intactivist Reddit channels, Discord servers, and Facebook groups to maximize viewership. This may be done by the hosts who are hosting the show, or by a volunteer promotional team, which I also hope to build. Eventually, we may seek sponsors, create a premium subscription option, or another donor rewards program to achieve monetization and increase organizational capacity. And finally, we may also create heroic content as this progresses, meaning extremely epic content that has a potential to go viral. For example, a foreskin regeneration of solar freaking roadways, which is a very successful crowdfunding campaign I liked. Or an Intactivist version of I am not black, you are not white, which is kind of a race spoken word thing that I think we could also easily copy and basically do an Intactivist version of it. Not saying it would be easy, but it'd take a lot of work, but it's simple enough how we would do it. So are there any questions for clarification on the proposal that I just mentioned? Make sense? Cool. All right. Then next, I want to move on to doing just some feedback from each person on any, again, 1 to 3 is plenty. It doesn't have to be super long. Just like what are the greatest strengths of the project that you see that you think we should definitely keep, basically, and what are the 1 to 3 things in which the proposal could be radically improved or changed, or things that could be added to it. And so, yeah, I'll invite each of you to do that now.
How do you envision getting these million viewers?
Good question. So, so that is the big question. Basically, within 6 months, if we go at this rate, we'll have about 2 hosts per day by the end of 6 months. So we would need to have about 50,000 or 60,000 views per video. So still quite a lot. So that's part of the question. Basically, what I want to do is try to figure out what it is that gets the greatest viewership. So kind of as we go, we will analyze our content to see what things we're doing that gets the greatest viewership, and then try to continually focus on creating that type of content. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect is the marketing. So I've mentioned a few of the things we can do to market to the Intactivist audience. And yeah, I think there's a lot of other ways that we could market to the Intactivist audience, or kind of bring all Intactivists who already exist on board. For example,
do we even have 1 million Intactivists, Jordan?
I think so. Depends how you define Intactivist, I suppose. Sure, yeah. Active right now, no. But I mean, if you even just, count how many people there are with severe complications from genital mutilation in the United States, there's at least 1 million, I think. That would be 1% of the 100 million circumcised men.
Do you have that like in Norm's database or something?
Do we have? You
Do we
mean?
have some sort of indication that there's that many people restoring based on like a database in at norm.org or something like that?
No, that's just a projection I'm making. I've heard people say there's about 250,000 men restoring as an estimate.
I think that was Ron Lowe that suggested that, and he's selling the stuff, so I would imagine he would have a good idea.
Right. Yeah. I think not all men that have severe complications are actually aware of it. As strange as that might be, they're not aware that it's caused by circumcision. But
Yeah, I wasn't aware, all the way up to age 35.
yeah, I also think there are a lot of men who are affected by it who don't get involved because it's just too painful for them, which is part
Absolutely.
of why creating content that people can look at that's not going to be like so painful that they can't watch it is part of the goal here. Something that's hopeful and something that's a little bit more positive for at least some of the content, I think will help attract more viewers. I think there are a lot of people who could be watching this and who are interested in it, but for one reason or another aren't staying in the movement or aren't staying involved in it. So I'll just say, that's part of why I want this group and why I'm trying to invite everyone here as well as anyone else who's watching this in the future for your ideas on how to make this possible. I think it's a massive goal. It's going to be incredibly difficult, but again, I think it's worth shooting for. And if we only got 100,000 views per week, I think that would still be amazing. So it's a stretch goal. Yeah, and again, so I'd like to invite each person for unless there are any other questions on it, that's also welcome. But if not, then the greatest 1 to 3 strengths and the greatest 1 to 3 ways that it could be improved.
I'd just like to say, yeah, I watched Carter's interview with his mom, and my wife and I both watched that, and we had really good conversation afterwards. So I really appreciate what you're doing over there, Carter. I think he's kind of leading by example of one way that we can try to build more is, getting other people involved is extremely important. As painful as like the process is, and it might take a lot of time, even just with one person, but we need other family members. We need other people kind of coming in and supporting us, because if it's just us alone, it's hard to get anywhere. So I don't know. I think that's one way that's good. Reaching out to new people, getting new people involved is really important. Yeah, it's kind of all I have to say about that.
So I've got a question. Are we talking about getting people involved in the Intactivist movement or getting people involved with watching the Intact radio show?
I think getting them involved in terms of like being willing to come on the show and talk, I think is really important. Having like opening lines of conversation. I think communication is really important. I mean, with my family, I've tried, it's not really working very well. But I mean, I'm not saying like we should bash our heads against a brick wall, but if people are open in any way, we have to kind of pursue that as much as we can, I think. Because it takes time. It takes a lot of time and effort to chip away at that and get them open to even considering, because that's kind of like a big barrier, right? People just don't want to, I mean, they might even understand or sympathize but they don't want to like engage in any way. So I think that's kind of a big hurdle.
Why don't we ask this question? Why aren't people interested in this? Why aren't people motivated to get involved with this? Why I thought that when that American Circumcision documentary was put out on Netflix, we'd start getting droves of people, looking to join the Intactivist or genital autonomy movement. And for a little while, I'm a moderator for and admin for several groups on Facebook. And for a little while, there was a bump in the numbers of people looking to get involved right after it showed up on the Netflix platform. But then it died out. And it's been really quiet ever since. And I don't get it. I don't know why people don't see this as a serious issue.
Yeah, I think in terms of reaching a really large audience, I have no idea like how that's possible or how we can do that. I'm not an expert at marketing or anything. I'm more just like focused on, I'm kind of like a one-on-one person. I'm more like a counselor type person. And I just feel maybe having such a large goal is, I don't think it's bad. I just think, you know, changing, like, for example, Carter, he's starting just with his mom, like, right? Like he's putting a lot of time and effort into one relationship. And that might not seem like, okay, he's not instantly getting like 1 million people watching, right? But if he can, for example, my mom is a doctor, right? And I've actually had this conversation with her. I'm like, people look up to you as a doctor. Like if you can like lead by example, you're gonna have a bigger influence than I'm gonna have just because you're a doctor. And that's not the way I would want it, but it's kind of the way it is. So as Carter getting his mom or getting someone else rather than just the victim on our side, it could potentially garner a lot more attention because it's not just like people kind of view us as just like we're just whining or complaining or whatever. I don't know how people view it or why they view it like that, but that's kind of the way that they view it. So,
well, I think there's two things there.
Know.
There's lack of numbers of men complaining, where there shouldn't need to be a lot of numbers. I mean, when you look at the FGM movement, there's not, you know, when you in the overall scheme of things, there's not a whole lot of women complaining about FGM, but there's, you know, 5 times more men that are cut, and thus we need at least 5 times more men complaining, and we need people to understand why we're complaining. I'm talking about details. So when it comes to the FGM movement, people know that, okay, well, they do these things that, you know, keeps women from having sex or keeps women from enjoying sex. Now, as far as everyone's concerned, well, men still enjoy having sex, right? Then men could still create babies and stuff like that. But they don't understand, I didn't understand even myself, that it's harmful, that our sex lives have been harmed. And it will be, you know, pretty much forever. We can do some restoration and all, but maybe some of us can do some restoration, not all of us. And people just don't understand that, and it's kind of complicated. And the FGM movement, they got a lot of help from the mass media. We don't really have that yet, I don't think.
Right, which is why it takes even like even more effort on our part to communicate to people on an individual level to get them to that level of understanding.
I'd like to invite, thank you, David and John. I'd like to invite Carter and John Giuffre, who haven't done their sort of 1 to 3 things, if you'd like to do that. And then we can also open it up to general discussion in a moment. But I'd also like to have everyone, you know, have an opportunity to speak and give their 2 cents on the project before we do sort of open discussion.
Yeah, to be upfront, I don't have much to offer in that regard. But I am certainly working on a lot locally in my area in Phoenix, Arizona. So I'm looking to petition the city council to like launch an investigation into this practice. And so that's really my sole focus right now. And I'm looking to, you know, I'm interested in seeing if other people want to get involved with that in any way. I'm noticing that when you attempt to do that by yourself, you have not much leverage. So I'm kind of going through all the processes that you have to go through to actually speak with a city council member. And I did this in Bellevue as well when I lived in there, Seattle, Washington. And I didn't get very far. I spoke with an executive assistant, but I couldn't get any farther up the chain. So I'm approaching it in a different way here in Arizona. And one component of that is just going to have a lot of content and material, like in a toolkit that I can share with the council beforehand to kind of brief them on what it is that I'm looking to talk about. And then also apply leverage from a group of people, maybe some subject matter experts, things like that. I'm speaking with Brian or and some other people at Doctors Opposing Circumcision and see if they can form a panel of like subject matter experts that can then speak, on the behalf of myself and other men that are appearing before the Phoenix City Council as victims. Um, so in terms of like how I'm going to grow that or how that could potentially be grown and integrated into this somehow, I don't necessarily have an answer for that. But I'm definitely looking to scale that model and see if it's effective in this area, if it could be effective in other areas as well. So other parts of the country, other cities, other counties, other states. How can we begin kind of injecting ourselves into this process and actually influencing some policy change? I think there is a way to clearly communicate the harm of this, and it was something that John was talking about, which is getting people to understand the anatomical loss that's taken place. So I've noticed really the only way to clearly communicate that, because it's so abstract to the average person, is actually showing models and imagery and actually like highlighting anatomically what's been excised in this procedure, and both from a neonatal perspective and an adult perspective to really highlight. And in the neonatal period, there's oftentimes a significant amount of tissue loss, and it's really apparent. It actually looks very severe. And I want to show that to the city council, because in many instances they trivialize, or when I've had communication with them, they do trivialize this issue. And I think when you can have that imagery, you can really communicate the gravity of the situation. So that's definitely something that I'm looking to include in the toolkit that I'm going to be putting together as well.
Absolutely.
We need a good graphics artist.
Yeah. And I'm looking to find one right now. I'm trying to source one. I'm actually going on Instagram, because there's all these accounts where like the whole account is filled with images of people who just draw penises, but they've like perfected it, right? They're drawing anatomically correct things. It's bizarre. It's like a weird phenomenon where like there were kids that did that in school and they never stopped. They just like perfected that art or something, So I found these accounts that were on there, and I reached out to one of the guys, M. Lopez something, and I asked him if he could, create accurate anatomical models if I brought him material to copy it from.
Fantastic. Yeah. I definitely see potentials there for other intact community projects, at least, if you want to source this model for just inviting other people on to help in some way. I think that's maybe one possibility. Or another thing is, I definitely see a lot of potentials with that. I know also Kyle of the Reclaimers, which is a part of a group that you're also associated with, is hoping to do similar things. So I think that could also be really great for, if you can figure it out to then build that out to other groups. And I think there's ways to make media around that as well. I mean, I think we could figure something out to talk about what you're doing, and especially as it gains steam, it's a pretty exciting project. So covering it in some way would be great, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually was hoping there would be an opportunity to expand upon that like later in the meeting, because I had taken some notes that I wanted to share.
Yeah, that's definitely something we could discuss, at least briefly. So
cool.
I'll give John Giuffre, though, a chance to also express any strengths or weaknesses or ways to improve that he'd like to share.
Sure thing. So I think, well, obviously creating content and creating more content is always going to be a strength. The mindset that I'm bringing to it from experience with marketing is maybe to adjust the expectations for why the content's being made. So if you look at things like, let's take like modern leftist political movements or something like that. content they might make on critical theory or, Black Lives Matter or feminism or anything like that, that content is 100% not there to convince people who don't agree with them to agree with them. It's not there for opposition groups, and it's hardly even really there for neutrals. It's mostly there for people who already agree with them to become more embedded in a community, to become trained, to become more invested emotionally in what they're doing and what they think. And then in that regard, the strength of the movement builds because they're taking their supporters and just making them stronger and more equipped with arguments. And then they'll go, spread those throughout. The goal of content in any marketing situation, like I've worked with fitness gurus that have had like 2 million plus audiences, and if their audience is like Elliot Hulse, for example, his audience is 16 to like 28-year-old men who want to get stronger physically. They want to do bodybuilding or strength training. It's like, well, he's 100% not talking to women at all, and he's not talking to older guys. He knows who he's talking to, and the goal of the content is always, for lack of a better word, for those people to take the next step, go deeper down the rabbit hole, and develop. So when we're making content, if we're expecting that just by, historically, if even the American circumcision documentary couldn't have made a big difference in the hearts and minds of people, that yelling into the void more probably won't change too many more hearts and minds, in my opinion. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I think some good outcomes of doing content to this degree is testing what messages work on intactivists, testing what messages will take people who are burnt out and tired of being upset about this or feeling like they're alone in it, and connecting them to each other so that we can have a more, congruent movement. I think all of that's great. But what I don't think the content's going to do is directly lead to circumcision being banned locally, statewide, or federally. To use leftists as an example again, because they're ridiculously effective without getting into the pro or con of their ideas, they're effective. The idea of the long march through the institutions was like, they don't need all 300 million Americans to agree with them. They need to target very specific nodes of power, take over those nodes of power, and just do the changes. And then the content afterwards is for PR, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, for example, with weed, like, I don't care if like my dad doesn't like that I smoke weed. That doesn't matter to me one way or another. But if the government's going to throw me in jail for it, that's a problem. So I'd really like my senator to not care if I smoke weed. So to kind of reel it back in, I think the presupposition that all movements have is like, we need everyone to agree with us. I don't think we do. And if only 250,000 men are interested in regeneration, maybe we could extrapolate that to assume like 5 million men in America could be interested in it if they heard about it, maybe 10. I wouldn't be too worried about convincing all 300 million Americans. If we can get into positions of power, then it doesn't necessarily matter what people think. There are plenty of people that think, abortion should or shouldn't be a certain way, but the fact is that abortion is a certain way because people in positions of power made it so. So I guess the big, not negative piece of feedback, but mindset shift is like this attitude about democracy or spreading the ideas in a viral fashion isn't going to achieve the stated goal of doing that, but it will achieve other great goals. So we should definitely still do the content. The other positive, I think, in the proposal you had was the support groups and having the healing work and that kind of a thing at those groups at meetings like this. That's going to be great because, like all of you said, some people don't know that, those kind of things are possible. And in that regard, we want to help as many people as we can. The last, I know I'm going on, so forgive me, but the last thing that because I read the whole PDF that you sent, The one other thing structurally is like the format of doing these groups of 6 is great for a support group, an education group, a healing group setting. Where I think it will fall short is guiding a movement, because right now, we have people who are the most dedicated to the cause, who've researched it the longest. Myself notwithstanding, I'm kind of the baby of the group, but it's like overall, it's people who are really dedicated to it, who've done a lot of work. They have the most chance of their ideas. All of you have the biggest chance of your ideas impacting the movement right now, before anyone's involved, and you're the most qualified. So there's an inverse incentive set up where, by having a requirement like we need to recruit more people, well, I'm recruiting people who are unqualified to vote on whether my good idea is good or not. And at a certain level, I'm adding layers of bureaucracy to the idea manifesting. So the better we recruit, the slower the organization becomes. So the only other thing I would change is like keep the group of 6 thing and have that all be distributed the way it was. But for control of tactics, I would find like the 10 most effective intactivists on planet Earth, recruit them to create a strategy together and find a way to get that strategy funded, and then distribute that to people who will do it. Because not everyone is born to be a strategist. So.
Good points. Thank you very much for all of that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch the recording to, I think, get everything you just said, because there was a lot there for sure.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's
Recover my
great.
TED Talk.
That's what I'm here for. But yeah, one of the main things I got was that we're kind of what I've, and I noticed too, the way I phrased it actually, when I rephrased like sort of those sub goals, a lot of it was movement building sort of objectives actually, whereas a million views is actually not so much movement building as it is just mass public awareness. Whereas then, trying to educate intactivists who currently exist, or get the current organizations on and sort of get a summary of everything they're doing so that everyone can be aware of what everyone else is doing. That's very internal stuff that probably millions of people aren't going to watch. Whereas the sort of viral content strategy is that, and it's just very different purposes. So so that's definitely a good insight. And I'm starting to think maybe you're right that actually the goal should be more of to build the movement, and then get as many views as we can for sure, but have a more clear, not just throw out a random number and say we should go as big as we can, but actually have more clear reasons for doing what we're doing. So appreciate that.
It didn't matter in World War II how many Americans didn't like the Germans. What mattered was how many Americans had a gun in their hand at Normandy, right?
Right. Yeah. And so then the other thing was focusing on actual activism, I think is kind of part of what I heard you say, is like we need to actually think about strategically like how we're going to achieve the objectives we're aiming for, such as what Carter just mentioned is one example of a strategical sort of strike, and focusing on those goals and figuring out how to do that effectively, such as getting top strategists in a room and trying to coordinate that, might be a better way to approach this, basically. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I think so. I'm hearing that there's a lot of want to almost go to sort of this broader strategy of the movement in a way, or how to achieve that strategy, and different ways to approach that, in addition to interest in this Intact Radio project. So I guess now I'd just like to invite kind of an open discussion here for either of those topics, and just to keep in mind that continue focusing as much as we can on the sort of, as a moderator, I'm just basically trying to keep this focused as clearly as possible on the best possible thing that we can be doing. And it's easy to get on like tangents that don't really matter in a way, or or to get caught in sort of, all the reasons that it might not work or whatever, but I wanted to stay solution focused and kind of figure out, okay, what are our challenges and how can we achieve both this media team as well as, if you'd like to talk about broader strategy, we can also go there. So
I'd like to address the worry about the organization getting too large. I'm 50 years old. I spent 3 decades with large corporations in IT. And one of the main things I always focused on every time I go into another corporation was identifying who's who to contact, and what the processes are to affect change. Because as a IT guy, that was usually half of what if not all of what I had to do was affect change. I had to make a big change in the organization. And so that was my main focus, was just getting to know who's who, so I could know who to reach out to or who to work with or what steps to take to make those changes occur. So I do hear you that, yeah, when the organization gets bigger, it can get slower. However, there's ways to address that. And that's part of how I designed the Genital Autonomy Society website. When you go register there, you can identify the many ways that you want to be involved. And you can also put in notes to explain your strengths, maybe how you're involved with the movement, any history or whatever. And you can put in like links to your social media sites and all that. So if this does get bigger, I offer that up as a place to organize people.
That's Genital Autonomy Society .org.
Yes.
Okay. For anyone watching this after the fact, please go sign up right now. Genitalaautonymysociety.org. It is a great organizing tool that John has created for us. So. Yeah.
As far as creating content, creating like videos is a lot of work, or even taking videos and modifying them for different platforms. One thing I've done is created hundreds and hundreds of videos for TikTok. And what I did was I took other videos that already existed and took bits and pieces out of them, shrunk them down or whatever to squeeze them into the 1 minute TikTok requirement. One thing that everyone can do is go to TikTok and find videos. You can find my channel if you want, but there's several other video channels that are genital autonomy focused, or even some videos where you'll find onesie twosie videos out there by people that are very, very popular, but they just happen to have 1 or 2 videos out there about the topic of circumcision or FGM or whatever. Go out there and do those videos. It helps spread those videos real fast.
Yeah, some of those videos that you've posted, John, have amazing metrics. I mean, there's a lot of individuals watching them. They get a lot of reactions, they get a lot of comments. So, and you were one of the first people to do that, I believe, start posting intactivist content on Twitter regularly. And yeah, some of those posts absolutely blew up. It's definitely a huge opportunity. I've seen Michael Winnell from Foreskin Revolution upload some very interesting videos as well, and get, decent metrics on them but I think there's a huge opportunity there still for new content to emerge, novel new content. There's a really great chance of it going viral, right? If you can make some good content, that platform is like one of the best to just ignite something.
There's a lot of room for creativity on TikTok.
Yeah. But if I could just go back a little bit to what John was saying, I thought a lot of things that you mentioned were very insightful, particularly about like drumming up our internal audience versus strictly trying to evangelize other people kind of into this movement. Because yeah, I haven't really explored that at all. I think there's a lot of room for growth there, and I don't think that need is being met yet. And I would love to like funnel people into my own personal projects that are really, you know, goals that I have for this movement in general. So I think there's an opportunity there as well. The marketing is not there for this at all.
That is that's something that Brendan Murata and I have been discussing a lot. The book he put out last year, what was it called? Like Intactivist Handbook or Guidebook or something.
Guidebook.
Um, that I mean, that basically is the roadmap. I mean, it's weird because I read that and was like, oh, this is like what I would do for like a client if I were installing a marketing operation for them. It's just instead of counting dollars and products sold, we're counting, who would, fund our organization, show up to a protest, whatever it is, right? He's working on a lot of the, like bringing, what is it, critical theory, postmodern theory and stuff as a new discourse. Because I think to a degree, um, one of the things people need to be trained on is like the reason we come off as whiny might be because of the way we speak about it. And Brendan he's not done with the book yet. I'm reading one of the drafts, and it's wild. It takes a bit to wrap your brain around and figure out how to adopt that discourse. Like that's going to be a skill that I need to learn, and that's the kind of thing where if there were a way for people in the movement to learn that, what if just like instead of 1,000 people who are like babies have a right to not be mutilated, what if those same exact 1,000 people just had a more effective sentence they could say instead of that so it's like that training aspect is definitely important, and I feel like Brendan is probably on the cutting edge of figuring out, like, 'cause he has the structure of it with some of his organizational stuff in that book, and then in the new book it's a new way of doing the messaging. So I really feel like he's on the cutting edge of a lot of it, but it's going to take a lot of people. It's going to take a lot of us to kind of figure out like a playbook.
So
Right.
do the FGM does the FGM side of this have people thinking that the FGM victims are whiny?
No, I don't think they do, and that's unfortunate that like men and women are treated differently on the issue. It's not fair, but unfortunately that's that's how it is. Like we got to find a way around it. Um, it's sexist and it's bullshit, but uh, yeah.
Yeah, I think hopefully what this could be, this Intact Radio project I'm putting together, is an opportunity for someone like Brendan then to, come with his messaging and basically help spread those ideas. And anyone, I mean, not just Brendan, but anyone who has a really good idea for how intactivism could improve itself in some way. I want to create a place where we can then sort of have a Brendan. When I talked with him about this, he said it's basically church is the term he used. It's like where everyone in the movement comes together in one place and gathers, and then it's like, oh, this is what we're doing. Gets kind of on the same page about things, and then can sort of project that forward. So that's definitely, I think, a big goal of this project is to have a place where we can take all of that. I think it's in Brendan's terminology, this is sort of the recruiting aspect of it. It's trying to, give people a way they can plug in. For example, if you want to be a host, it's pretty easy. You can just come on for 30 minutes a week if you want, or 30 minutes even every other week if you're really short on time, or you can do more if you want. So it's pretty flexible as far as how much you want to participate. And I want to just give people an opportunity where they can come on and have their voices heard. as well as give this groups a structure where it's like you have other people doing the same thing that are kind of supporting you and giving you that encouragement. Because I know for myself, like when I'm just doing it all by myself, sometimes I get kind of discouraged and lose focus or feel like I'm just out there on a limb all alone. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the structure is that can sort of support that that improvement of our messaging or of our narrative and our culture as well, and all different aspects of the movement. And yeah, I think one question I'm trying to figure out is that structure for people to plug into, because not everyone's going to want to be a host, but they might still want to be involved in other ways. So by all means, Carter, you know, for example, if you want people involved in your project, that's something. If you know you give me a way for them to do that, I'd be happy to invite people. It's part of what I want to do here. Or John with your John Edkison with your Genital Autonomy Society. By all means, having that platform to invite people to is great. You know, I'd be happy to share that with people who are potentially interested. Carter, was there something else you wanted to share? I know you'd mentioned earlier.
Yeah, you know, there were a few things that I wanted to touch on. One, I was thinking it'd be great to invite maybe Kyle from the Discord server to one of these meetings. You know, I'm not sure if we can put in suggestions or things like that, but I'd love to have him here for the next meeting because he has a lot to share. He's adding a lot of value to this project that we're working on together, which is to begin targeting these city county councils and petitioning them to either launch an investigation into the harms of this practice or put forward some type of recommendation to the state or put out some type of material like an enhanced circumcision consent form that could be mandated at hospitals. So some incremental step here that we can then build off of and also use as an example and a model and a way to get people on board with intactivism in general, but also like a single focused mission to go down. So Kyle is, you know, a big part of that team for me. So I'd love to have him here for the next meeting.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's great. I thought I'd actually talked with him yesterday, I think, or yesterday or the day before, and was thinking he should definitely be involved in this. So that's
Cool.
We'll do that.
One idea that a friend came. It was really weird. I think I mentioned this at the top of the call, but a friend of mine who I've known since I was 5 years old. His name's Michael. He I've never really spoken to him much about the issue. Like he knew I've done some work with Brendan and everything, but like never really talked about it. And he messaged me today saying he wanted to hear more about that work. I'm like, well, that's odd. I'm about to go to a meeting on it. It's a little synchronicity, right? And he's a neuroscientist at Brandeis University. And he told me, he's like, well, you know, in my training to become a PhD, basically I'm being trained in the skill of finding bullshit reasons to get government money. And I think that can be helpful to you, except your reason's not bullshit. And I said, okay, tell me more. He said, well, for example, I want to study this certain mechanism in the brain that no one understands. There's like 20 people who've ever studied it. Now, if something goes wrong with it, there's like a 1 in 100 chance it'll lead to someone developing epilepsy. So what I did is I wrote a grant request to get money to study epilepsy. Because if I can study epilepsy, that's something practical that gives me a way to study this thing. Whereas if I just asked for money to study this thing, no one would even know what I was asking for money for. He said, how does this apply to circumcision? I said, well, a company like 4Gen could, and maybe they're already doing this, but a company like 4Gen could, for example, partner with a university or some other non-university research institution and request government funding under the guise of if so the type of tissue obviously that is cut off when the foreskin is removed is the same as what something mucosal membrane. Like, yeah, it's the same as your lips, right? And so he said, what I would do if for some reason people don't give a shit when you say that circumcision is mutilation, even though it is, well, everyone would agree that someone who in Iraq, an IED goes off and a soldier's bottom lip gets blown off, right? Well, everyone would agree that that is mutilation. So what I would do is I would say, well, there's this company called 4Gen, and they have not only found a way to regenerate the body part, but to install it back in a way where it can be neurologically rewired and there can be the function, not just the form. It's like if your arm gets blown off, you can get a prosthetic arm, but you're not going to feel anything, right? But how great would it be to get a fucking arm back? That'd be amazing. Now, the idea would be that 4Gen could partner with a university who would work on making sure that the healed foreskin would bring back that feeling and that function that was lost. And by doing that, we would also gain immense knowledge towards helping with reconstruction for all body parts, lips, organs. If your foot gets blown off, you get in a car accident, you lose half your face, whatever it is. And by framing it in that way, two things get done. One, you can bypass any bigotries against this issue and just take their fucking money and who cares, and that money goes to 4Gen. But then on a much deeper level, you've institutionally and in the world of science placed circumcision in the same realm as someone got hit by an IED in Iraq and their lip got blown off. So it's simultaneously bypassing individual people's bigotry while institutionally and scientifically putting it in the same category, and all the while you're taking their money to help a company that's already doing great work. So that's like the kind of like far out there. And I was like, you picked a really good day to just call me out of nowhere and tell me this, because like I'm gonna go tell that to a bunch of people in like 20 minutes. But it was very strange. I'm like, I got to connect you with Jordan. He knows all the people at 4Gen. But so it's like that kind of thing is like there are weird ways that I wouldn't think of, most people wouldn't even think of, that could probably make a difference. And like none of them really have to do with convincing people circumcision is wrong. Even though that's a desired outcome, like obviously at the end of the day, I would prefer to live in a world where people are like, I'd love to chop some baby dick if only it were legal. Like I'd prefer not to live in that world, but that world is still better than the world where it's happening, right?
Right. That's really interesting. I'll definitely have to mention that to Forage people. I'd like to talk with this guy more too to get a little bit more details on it. But we're actually working with a university or a couple universities already.
Awesome.
But yeah, having a little bit more. It sounds like this guy really knows what he's talking about. So I definitely would like to connect more with him on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm aware that I said the meeting will be an hour and a half, and there's about 10 minutes left until it will have been an hour and a half. So hold on, I think I had one other thing left to do. Oh, yes. So I'm just going to wrap this section of the meeting up for now. There will be another section where you can say kind of final reflections before we end. But right now, what I'd like to do first is basically commit to any next actions that anyone would like to do to move this project forward. So, so for this, is basically just ask to yourself, think to yourself, like, what is it that I could do to move this project forward in a big or small way that that would be something you'd be willing to do? And some possibilities would include send me any resources that might be relevant. And that could also include connections to people who might have something to contribute to this project. Help me bring any idea that was sparked in this meeting to fruition. So anything that was sparked here, if you'd like to help bring that to fruition, that would be great. If you'd like to become an Intact Radio host, that would be amazing. Recommend anyone else who may be like to be involved in, again, this project or be an Intact Radio host. Help me with some element of promotion or marketing is one major thing that is going to be super important for this. Presenting an extension of this project or just another separate project at a future Intact community meeting where you can kind of run a similar meeting and basically ask people for feedback or for help with the project or just present a project. And yeah, anything else that can accelerate Intactivism toward achieving our goals. So you don't have to, but or you can just tell me afterwards as well. But if there's anything anyone would like to share right now for next actions they would like to commit to move this forward, I would, yeah, open the floor for that. John?
Jordan, are you connected with Tim Hammond?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to have him on an Intact Radio show. He has such an amount of historical knowledge on the movement.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm going to connect with him soon. And I think there's multiple ways to connect with him as well. But Intact Radio is that's a great idea. Thank you.
I will connect you, Jordan, with, and Brendan as well, with my friend Michael, who I was just talking about. I think Brendan's doing a podcast this or next week that's going to be similar to this on utilizing social media strategy. So I guess I was already committed to doing that, but I'll not uncommit myself, I suppose. And I have kind of a method. I call it the PACE method. We talked about it a bit in Austin that I would bring to any client or studio or organization that Logos was working with. I'll see, I don't know when I'll be able to get it to you. It might take a while, but I'm going to try to work on some kind of proposal or outline for how that method might apply to this issue. I don't know when I can get that to you, but hopefully it'll be useful in figuring out like what kind of people to target for what position and how to leverage them, I guess.
Great. I'll put you down for that. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that and it sounded really, really interesting. Like, I think it could be very beneficial. So,
and I'm going to ship all y'all to a bunch of podcasts if you're interested in it, because I have a bunch of podcasts that I do booking for. They're not, only one of them's mine, but I've, different clients or people in my ecosystem, and I'm happy to help get the word out in that way. So any of y'all that are interested in doing podcasts, I guess let Jordan know, and Jordan will connect you to me, and then we'll do the whole thing.
Fantastic. That's perfect. All right. Appreciate it, John. Anyone else have any next actions they would like to commit to? John still here? I think he is. Just all right, cool. Okay, good. Great. Thank you all. And Carter, I know you mentioned maybe you wanted to do more stuff around this. I will connect with you in the future about that. It's okay if you're not wanting to commit to it yet. No problem. But and David, I know you kind of have already said you'd like to be an Intact community host. So hopefully you're still willing to do that. And yeah, I'd love to meet with you next week. You're kind of the first host I've brought on. So if we could start that up soon, that would be great.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. Yeah, that's basically it. One thing I will do quick here is, give me 1 second. I have an invite for all of you if you would like to join. I think all of you may already be in the Facebook group actually, but I'll post it anyways. There's a Facebook group, there's a Discord, which none of you are in. And anyone who has been in an Intact community meeting is welcome to join the Discord. So that's basically what that's for. If you've been in an Intact community and you want to continue, join the Discord. And then there's also the YouTube channel. If you're not already following that, that's the third link there. They're all kind of running together. Hold on. And anyone watching this afterward, whatever, it's fine. Watching this afterward, there will also be the YouTube and the Facebook link in the description of this video. So that's it for today. Thank you all so much for coming and for contributing. I'm really excited for this project to move forward and for all the feedback I've gotten on other projects. And yeah. One final thing I will say is that one of the most important parts of this meeting is that I really want to get feedback from everyone to know how I can improve it. And so there's no pressure, you don't have to, but I'd like to invite you to stay for a few minutes and give me feedback on this meeting. But that's kind of an optional thing if you want to. If not, that's fine. And yeah, thank you all for coming. So I'll officially end the meeting. Oh, I forgot to do, sorry, there's one other thing I missed. Anyone who wants to give any final comments or thoughts, I will invite you to do that now. So just any final reflections, anything that came up that you'd like to mention before we end. Yeah, just open the floor for any final thoughts. Thank you, Tumbleweed, for rolling across the plains. Appreciate that. That was a good final thought there. And yeah, thanks again, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Jordan.
All right. I'm going to end the recording here because we don't